one thing that's very important for us to understand is that in the past, many very rich and powerful people have been involved in the UFO and disclosure community for various reasons. And that's actually even still happening. Listen to this segment from ufologist Jeremy Corbell that he put out just the other day about this very topic.
I believe this is now becoming about money. I see huge billionaires coming in, influencing politics, influencing the flow of information of whistleblowers. It's so obvious to me that there's a changing of the guard. When we had CIA shut down the transfer of a UFO from Lockheed Martin to the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. This is well documented. The head of the DIA UFO program came on my show. He said, we have a UFO. We breached the hull of it. I don't know if he went as far as to say I was inside of it, but he was inside of it. So we have an admission on one level. So we know it's true. But on the other end, we have this new guard coming in that I think they're going to profit financially from having whistleblowers come to them first, from shaping the emerging UAP narrative. I hate seeing the world that way, but if that is the way the world is, then that's the world we got to work in. If we can crack the code on the UAP thing, just get ground truth on this, it's going to open up just an absolute flow of information in other areas. I'm not going to be cynical about it, Chris. I'm going to keep an open mind. We'll keep people accountable. But I think that we have an opportunity still. We have to push. The public has to push.
So be aware that some of the names of people that have been involved in the official disclosure community are people like the Rockefellers, the Clintons, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Senator Harry Reid, John Podesta, Robert Bigelow, Tom DeLonge, the lead singer of Blink-182, and Hal Puthoff, an ex-CIA agent. And then there's connections between these people and others that you've probably heard of. For instance, the billionaire Robert Bigelow started a foundation called NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science, founded in 1995. This organization was all about studying paranormal phenomena, including aliens and abduction and interdimensionality, all these different things. His group is famous for having researched the Skinwalker Ranch and all of the paranormal phenomenon that have come out of that place. But his group NIDS included on its board as a member the famous ufologist Jacques Vallée, who is the basis for the ufologist researcher character in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Parlez-vous français? Ouais.
And Jacques Vallée actually worked also with Hal Puthoff in the CIA's remote viewing program called Project Stargate. They worked together with a team of remote viewers, and Jacques Vallée's mentor and friend from the group was Joseph Allen Hynek. And both of these men were actually of the Rosicrucian order. They shared this in common. It's why they became such close friends. But in this project, the Stargate project, there were actually an abundance of Scientologists. Hal Puthoff had been involved with Scientology. Another remote viewer named Pat Price, and another named Ingo Swann were all Scientologists. And Hal Puthoff actually mentioned this in one of his books, saying that the practices of Scientology actually provided them viable means through which to enhance their psychic abilities for this involvement and practice of remote viewing. Now, after this project, Hal Puthoff actually joined up with Tom DeLonge of Blink 182, and they started an organization called To the Stars. And the mission of this organization was to elevate global consciousness, quote unquote, and to allegedly prepare for the age of disclosure, as they put it. Now, you do have to wonder, with all these different groups and people getting involved in ufology and the alien phenomenon, is it really to drive real disclosure, or is it to actually control disclosure? Is it to make disclosure happen the way that is most profitable for each of them and their groups or companies or organizations? So the question arises, how would we ever know if we got full disclosure from any one of these groups or people? But there is one thread of connection between all of these groups and people. Not to sound like a broken record, but Dr. Steven Greer has been involved for so long and with so many of these groups that he seems to be the common thread that runs between all of them. Like we'd said, he'd been doing this for decades. He's done documentaries. He has interviewed multiple whistleblowers. He did a project back in the 90s called the Serious Disclosure Project, in which he interviewed probably 50 or so different whistleblowers from all aspects of the military-industrial complex and many people who are involved with either UFOs, non-human craft, or non-human entities. And just so you understand where Steven Greer sits in all this, as far as his understanding of these things, he believes that the alien entities are all benevolent. He hasn't had any experiences, or so he says, where any of these entities have been belligerent or done anything violent or deceptive. He also, just as Jake Barber's testimony, Steven Greer believes these entities can be summoned. In fact, he's been doing it for over a decade himself with his own group called CE5. Now, he calls that CE5 because it's Close Encounter Type 5, meaning that they have summoned these entities and their craft, and they have interacted with them. And the way that they do this is by going out into the Nevada desert, usually on a nice clear night, and they camp out all night, and they go into trance, and they meditate to try to summon. They call to these beings and ask them to appear, and they summon them. And generally, they have had so much success in summoning these entities that it has become a very large program. They even have an app you can download on your phone and participate in the summoning process across the globe. So again, the testimony of Jake Barber being so profound is more about his credibility than it is about him saying things that have not been said before. Again, Steven Greer and his group have been summoning these entities and their craft for years now. But realize that all of these things are reinforcing the ideas of these entities being interdimensional, not necessarily coming from the sky, at times coming from the ground or from the ocean or out of thin air, simply appearing. So again, the signs are pointing towards a phenomenon and a group of entities that are, as we would call them, interdimensional, where they can come in and out of our existence at will. And it's interesting that the UFO community in general, being very secular and non-religious, has always looked down on Christians who have thought that this phenomenon was angelic in nature or demonic in nature. But here we have the most credible and now recent whistleblowers coming out saying that these entities behave like angels and demons, and that they are summoned just as you would if you were to summon an angel or a demon, essentially in a state of trance or prayer. So the disclosure that we've had up to this point seems to indicate this to us, the nature of these beings. And that has been debated for a long time in the UFO community. What are these aliens? Are they real entities? Are they physical? Are they non-physical? Are they interplanetary? Are they interdimensional? But in reality, is full disclosure really only about the entities themselves and their nature? Is disclosure going to be spun a different direction so we really don't understand the true identity and intent of these beings. So what is the real disclosure? If we're starting to understand better the nature of these entities, and that is lining up with a spiritual or dimensional aspect, then what's the real disclosure that they're still hiding? What's the one thing that they won't talk about?